Okay, class, are we ready to learn lots and lots of math? Of course you are. I know you can't wait. Today's lesson is on dividing polynomials. First, let's recall long division, and you may have to remember all the way back to third or fourth grade. We start off by saying, how many times does 7 go into 3? Oh, it won't go. So we say 7 into 36, and that goes 5 times. And then we multiply around this way. I'm sure you remember. And notice we subtract. So we put the negative sign here. And now we just bring the rest down. Now, maybe in elementary, I wouldn't have brought the 8 down. But for this, I bring everything down. So now 7 goes into 12 one time. Multiply around. And notice where the 1 is. That's where I put the 7 in that column. And now I subtract and I get 58. And now 8. And I multiply around and get 56. And now what did we call that 2? We called that the remainder. Let's see if you remember all the parts. Because the names won't change. You remember what that 7 is called? It's called the divisor. And, do you remember what this number is called? It's called the dividend. And my personal favorite, the quotient. Alrighty, so let's remember those parts. So what we do, when the teacher used to say, so what's the answer? You would put the quotient, and then what would you do about the remainder? Well, we used to just say remainder 2. And then when we got a little more sophisticated, we would say 518, and then we would take the remainder over the divisor. And I really want you to remember that because that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so we put the quotient. That got weird. And then the remainder over the divisor. That's how we're going to present our answers. Okay. And we're going to be doing the same thing. But today we're going to do all of this with polynomials. Okay, and as you always know, I like for you to try the examples first and pause the video and then come back and see if you got it right. So, first of all, if we're dividing by a monomial, which we can see here, the process is pretty easy. And what I like to do is simply break up each part and put it over the divisor, which happens to be 3x. And now, if we reduce each part individually, we'll get a good answer. Okay, so now I can reduce, and then 3 minus 1 is 2, so that's x squared. Don't forget those laws of exponents. I reduce here, that gives me a 3, and that's a x. I get a 2 here, and those cancel, so this is just 2. And 3 goes into 12 4 times, so that's 4 over x. And believe it or not, we can stop right there. Okay. Now, we're going to kick it up a notch. Oh, yeah. We're going to divide by a binomial this time, and we're going to use long division. So we're going to set it up the same. The divisor goes outside the dividend, which is our numerator. And now we're going to do it just like we did long division. But now you're going to have to be a little bit more aware of where you put the numbers. And I'm just going to teach you some tricks and techniques that'll help with this. You're only, and let me change colors just for a moment. You're only going to focus on X, which is the first part, and this first part right here. So you're going to ask yourself, how many times does X go into 3X cubed? Or you're really dividing it in. So what am I going to multiply X by to get this? 3X squared. And I want you to see that. I'm going to do a little sidebar. If I multiply this together, notice I'm going to get 3X cubed. And that's my desired result. I'm figuring out what to put here that I can multiply that's going to get me exactly what's here. Okay. So now when I multiply around, it's going to match perfectly. Let me change back to white. And I get 3X cubed. But also, you have to distribute. So you're going to multiply to both terms. That's where the -1 comes in. We weren't ignoring it. And we get 3X squared. Okay, so once we figured this number out, then we distribute it around to both. And notice you want to keep the cubes in the same column. So you want to line up the like terms. Now, this is the part that most people don't like. Remember, before we did subtraction. We always did subtraction. So that's what we have to do here. But since this is a polynomial, we're going to distribute a negative sign. So that positive just became negative. And now we're going to combine like terms. And if you do it right, that first term will always go away. And now when I combine these two, I get a negative 4x squared. I recommend you bring everything down to avoid mistakes. So now, remember, you're only looking at the x, and we're only going to look at this first one right here. Before we looked at up here, now we're looking right here, okay? So what am I going to multiply x by to get this? A negative 4x. And notice when I distribute around, I'm going to put it in these two spots right here. Okay, so I get a negative 4x squared. Hold on, let's go back to white. A negative 4x squared. And then when I multiply by the -1, I get a positive 4x. And you really have to watch those signs. And now what do? Subtract. So I go opposite here and opposite there. So now when I when I combine like terms, these cancel. That's a positive 6x. That's a negative 4x. So I get 2x plus 8. Repeat the process. And I'm trying to go slow this first time to make sure you're okay. How many times does x go into 2x? That leaves 2. And so now I'm going to distribute that around to both of these. So I get 2x. And 2 times a -1 gives me -2. And remember our last step, change those signs. And you have to go all the way through the polynomial when you change those signs. So that's gone. And I get, positive 8 and a positive 2 gives me a positive 10. So how do we present the answer? Don't forget, you're going to put your quotient, which is 3x squared minus 4x plus 2, plus the remainder over the divisor. Now, there's tons of applications where this is going to be relevant. Just not quite yet. Hold on, I'm going to show you why we want to divide polynomials and what it means. That's going to be in the next lesson or two. Okay, let's recap. We divided x minus 1. So we put the denominator as our divisor and we put it first. And then we always made sure to line up all the squares, put them in the same column. The cubes stayed together. You want to try to get your like terms to line up. That'll save you from making small mistakes. Let's try this again, and I think it'll be a little better this time. Okay, so what comes second, that is our divisor. Ooh, we have a little issue here. Notice with our dividend, we have the fourth power and then it skips down to the first power. There's no x cubed and there's no x squared. So I'm going to leave some space for the cube and the square. Just because when I line up my like terms, I want to have a column for them to go in. There's nothing there, but I just want to leave some space. And that's a positive 5. So I'm going to make sure I put that. Okay, so now what can I multiply this by to get this? That is the question. So I want 4x squared. And that's the fourth power, the third power. This is my squared column. So I'm going to put 4x squared here. And I'm going to distribute to all three. And that's going to go here, here, and here. Okay, so that'll be 4x to the fourth minus 12x cubed minus 8x squared. Now I'm going to add. But remember, we definitely want to go through and do subtraction. So I'm going to change all those signs. And now I'm going to combine like terms. So that's gone. There was nothing there. It's like a 0. So I just get 12x cubed plus 8x squared plus 5x minus 4. Now I'm asking myself, how many times does x squared go into 12x cubed? Okay, so I need a 12x here. And I get 12x cubed. And I'm distributing to all three. Don't forget, you got to go all three. So that times all three. Now I get a negative 36x squared minus 24x. Change all those signs because we have to subtract. Okay, that's gone. That gives me 44x squared plus 29x minus 4. And now I'm saying x squared goes into here how many times? Positive 44. And I distribute around to all three, and I put the answers here. So I get 44x squared minus, what is that? 44 times, is that 132? So that's going to be 132x. And I think that's negative 88. Okay, so now don't forget to go through and change the signs because we have to do subtraction. And now combine those like terms. The first thing we'll always leave if you do this correctly. And so we get a 161x here. And let's see, that's negative and that's positive. So that's going to be plus 84. Remember how to present the answer. Okay, that's your quotient. 4x squared plus 12x plus 44 plus the remainder over the divisor. Okay, so all of that is my answer. Now I'd like to teach you a shorter way to do this, and it's called synthetic division. When you think of the word synthetic, most people tend to say, oh, that's something that's fake. But I want you to think of more of something that's manufactured or a process that's created. Okay? Synthetic division can be so fast that if you blink, you'll miss it. So I want you to focus a lot right now. Synthetic has one drawback. It only works when the divisor is of the form x plus k or x minus k. It works best, okay? There's some loopholes and things you can do to force it to work, but these are the times when I use it. For example, if the divisor is like x plus 3 or x minus 1, not 2x plus 3, I probably would just use long division if it was something like that. Okay, so here's what you do. First, you look at the divisor and you figure out what makes the divisor 0. So x equals 1. Easy thing you can do is just kind of go opposite the sign. So now you take that number and you put it in a little corner. Notice it's like a backwards L or a little corner box. Now you take all of the coefficients from the divisor. So 3, -7, space them out a little bit, +6, and 8. And you make sure that you have all the powers, 3, 2, 1, none. So if there was a power missing, we would put a 0 in its place. Now focus right here. The first number, you just bring it straight down, and that's a 3. And now we're going to do this little crisscross, pop, lock, and drop it move, okay? You always multiply by what's in the corner box. So 1 times 3 is 3, and you put it above the next line. You always combine like terms or just add straight down. And now you're going to go back and multiply by what's in the box and put it above. You always put it above the next line. You add straight down, multiply by what's in the box, add straight down. Then we take and put another little corner right here. And what I want to teach you now, oh, by the way, we're done. It's just that fast. What I want to show you now is how to interpret this answer. Okay, we're going to interpret the answer. The first thing I want you to notice is that we started with the third power and we divided by the first power. So the result, 3 minus 1, is going to be x squared. So these are now the coefficients for our answer. So this is 3x squared minus 4x. And I'm just going down one power at a time. And the 10 is my remainder. And of course, the divisor has not changed. Again, notice that we started with the third power, so it's always going to drop one power. So if it started with 3, now we're down to 2. Okay, let's try one more example just to make sure you have it. As a matter of fact, why don't you pause and try this one on your own? Okay, let's see how you did. Did you put -2 in the corner? Okay, because that's our divisor, and x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 from both sides. It's whatever makes the divisor 0, or you can just think of it as go opposite. Now I'm going to go -1, 3. There's no x term. So I need to put a 0 for the x, and then I put a 4 for my constant term. All right, leave a space and draw my line. I drop the first number straight down and always multiply by what's in the box and put it above the next line. Multiply by the -2, add, multiply by the -2, and add. I love synthetic division. I started with the third power, so this is -x squared plus 5x minus 10. Remainder is 24 over x plus 2. Always look at that original divisor so you don't get confused.